Lebanon is once again under attack by Israel. We have seen pictures of the bombing in Beirut. And just a few days ago, a village in southern Lebanon called Aitou was also attacked. Could this spark an all-out war in the region? Stay with me as I share my views as former ambassador to Beirut and someone who has been to some of these places. Lebanon and Israel share a border. The southern part of Lebanon is the northern part of Israel. In the 1970s, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO, launched itself into Lebanon. There is a longer backstory to this, but I do not want to confuse you with the details. So for the moment, just consider that in the 1970s, the PLO was in Lebanon, and from the southern part of Lebanon, it launched attacks against Israel. But in 1978, the PLO miscalculated. It launched a massive attack near Tel Aviv in what is known today as the Coastal Road Massacre. As a result, the Israeli armed forces launched a massive operation against Lebanon with the aim of destroying PLO. It was an operation known as Operation Litani. The southern part of Lebanon was heavily bombarded.
On March 14, 1978, the 1978 South Lebanon conflict, codenamed Operation Litani by Israel, began after Israel invaded southern Lebanon up to the Litani River. It was in response to the Coastal Raid Massacre near Tel Lebanon.
Israel agreed to a ceasefire and agreed to pull out. UNIFIL. However, Israel did not pull out completely. Instead, it created a proxy militia known as the South Lebanese Army or South Lebanon Army, and armed it so that it would be effectively able to occupy the southern part of Lebanon. So as you can imagine, things never calmed down. The PLO continued to launch attacks across the border from the southern part into Israel. Now you must remember, although there is UNIFIL deployed over in this area, it is impossible for the UNIFIL to cover every single square mile. Now there are plenty of places where PLO militias could hide and launch attacks against Israel. And so these attacks continue, as I mentioned to you. In 1982, Israel decided that enough is enough, and it decided to launch an invasion of Lebanon right up to Beirut with the aim of defeating and pushing PLO right out of Lebanon. And that is what it did. The Israeli forces marched right up to Beirut, fought the PLO, and eventually PLO was forced to move out of Lebanon. Now, what happened was that this vacuum left by PLO was quickly filled by another proxy, this time a proxy known as Hezbollah, made up of Shiites and funded and supported by Iran. The Lebanese civil war ended in 1989 under the Saudi Arabia's Taif agreement. In this agreement, all the Lebanese militia agreed to disband, but not Hezbollah. Hezbollah decided that it would keep its arms. For sure, Iran did not want to give up its control over Hezbollah because it was an opportunity for Iran to challenge the Arab-led order. Since the signing of the peace agreement in 1989, skirmishes continued in the southern part of Lebanon. Hezbollah continued to lob rockets and attacks across the border to Israel. In 1993 and 1996, Israel launched two more massive military operations against Lebanon with the aim of destroying Hezbollah. In 1996, in one of these operations, Israeli bombardment accidentally hit the Fijian battalion, which was part of UNIFIL. Even after Israel withdrew from the southern part of Lebanon, there was no peace. Hezbollah continued to attack periodically across the border, launching rockets into Israel. And Hezbollah also acted aggressively against the Lebanese state itself. There were many incidents in Beirut where the Hezbollah supporters came out in arms, protesting against the government, etc. And by this time, the majority of Lebanese were getting fed up of Hezbollah's behavior, because it was no longer behaving as if it was a Lebanese entity, but rather as an alien entity against the interests of the state. Within the Shiite community as well, even within the Shiite community, Hezbollah did not enjoy full support, because there was another party, a Shiite party known as Amal, which also had a large number of Shiite members. So in 2006, Hezbollah decided to launch an attack against an Israeli convoy inside Israel. So in this ambush, several Israeli soldiers were killed and 2 soldiers were abducted. In retaliation, the Israeli army launched a massive attack against Lebanon. Southern part of Lebanon, the southern part of Beirut, especially in the area called Dahieh, which was a stronghold of the Shiites and Hezbollah, were bombarded 34 days continuously.
July 12, 2006, 9:30 in the morning. Hezbollah launches dozens of Katyusha rockets on towns and villages in the north of Israel. At the same time, a Hezbollah unit attacks the border fence. Here, near the rural village of Zarit, 2 IDF vehicles are attacked. Eldad Regev and Ehud Goldwasser, on their last day of reserve duty, are wounded and taken. But not only the north of Israel is ablaze. During the first stages of the operation, most of the IDF's targets are hit by massive Air Force bombardments and artillery fire that cause tremendous damage to infrastructure, command posts, military bases, and manpower.
This led to an international outcry. The UN passed Resolution 1701, which expanded the mandate of UNIFIL. Malaysia, in the interim, was the chair of OIC at that time, and it could not just sit idly by just making statements. So Tun Abdullah Badawi, Prime Minister at that time, announced that Malaysia would be prepared to send peacekeepers to serve under the expanded UNIFIL. And Indonesia also did the same. So eventually, when the UN Resolution 1701 was passed, Malaysia sent its peacekeepers. Initially, Israel objected, but eventually relented, and the Malaysian battalion was deployed not at the border between Israel and Lebanon, but further inside within the area of coverage of UNIFIL in the villages of Maraka and Tibnin. And since then, Malaysia has maintained a battalion of about 850 odd soldiers. Inside the Malaysian battalion, there are also several Brunei soldiers who are embedded as part of Malbat and also serving as peacekeepers in Lebanon. So what is the situation now? The 7 October massacre launched by Hamas is reminiscent of PLO's actions in 1978. You recall the Coastal Road massacre that I mentioned? This time, Israel seems determined to wipe out all of Iran's proxies, which included, besides Hamas, Hezbollah as well. After having flattened Gaza over the last 1 year, Israel now is looking towards Hezbollah. But it seems determined to avoid the mistakes of the past, which involved ground invasion or occupation of any part of Lebanon. Instead, today it is focused on eliminating the leadership of Hezbollah and going after its infrastructure to weaken it and ultimately destroy it. Israel is following what is known as the Dahieh Doctrine. What is the Dahieh Doctrine? The Dahieh Doctrine basically is a doctrine which says that Israel would inflict harm and damage and death and destruction upon the Shiite population of Dahieh and wherever they are, so that the Shiites themselves would rise up against their leadership and eventually rout out Hezbollah. So this is the reason why Israel has been very carefully targeting the leadership and targeting the southern part of Beirut, which is heavily populated by the Shiites, and now moving on to the southern part of Lebanon, which is Shiite majority area. And Benjamin Netanyahu's TV address to the people of Lebanon recently, calling upon them to not support Hezbollah, calling them to overthrow their leadership, is actually a part of this Dahiya doctrine. It's also a signal to the Lebanese government and also the Arab governments that this attack is not aimed at them, and therefore it is a way of telling them not to intervene. But the problem is, aerial bombardment by Israel is not foolproof. There is going to be collateral damage. So the question is UNIFIL safe? Could there be collateral damage in UNIFIL as well? Well, unfortunately, the answer is yes. So what does this mean? Would UNIFIL pull out? No, I don't think so. Because UNIFIL was created by the UN resolution, and even during 1996, when the Fijian battalion was bombarded, UNIFIL stayed put. In any event, sometimes peacekeepers also get killed. In the history of UNIFIL, some 300 civil peacekeepers have been killed. So it is most likely that UNIFIL will remain. It's also likely that most of the peacekeeping or peace contributing troops would also remain. In the case of Malaysia, it's quite difficult to imagine that Malaysia would pull out its troops. After all, it's a matter of image and prestige to the country and to the leadership. But in any event, this is a decision that has to be made by the highest level of leadership in the country. So, is another war between Israel and Hezbollah inevitable? Well, the situation is delicate. UNIFIL's presence helps keep the peace. Hezbollah is still on the ground. Israel is still determined to rid the Lebanese territory of Hezbollah. The way I look at it, anything is possible. If you liked this video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. And do not forget to comment as well. Thank you.